Pharaohs were the most powerful rulers of ancient Egypt. They were seen as gods on earth, chosen to protect their people and rule with wisdom. But behind the golden crowns and grand pyramids, some pharaohs had strange habits that seem shocking today. They followed bizarre traditions that shaped their reign and left behind stories that still amaze historians. Some drank crushed mummy powder. Others married their own siblings, and a few even staged fake battles to appear stronger. These rulers were not just powerful, they were also mysterious, eccentric, and sometimes terrifying. Their actions made history, but many of their choices were truly bizarre. Pharaohs ruled Egypt with absolute power. They controlled everything from laws to religion, and people worshiped them like gods. But power often leads to strange decisions. Some pharaohs feared death so much that they drank potions made from human remains. Others believed they could take their servants to the afterlife and had them buried alive. They even wore poisonous makeup, thinking it had magical protection. These rulers lived in a world of mystery, superstition, and fear. Their strange customs may seem unbelievable today, but in ancient Egypt, these practices were considered normal. The more we learn, the stranger their world becomes. Ancient Egypt was a land of wonders, filled with towering pyramids, powerful gods, and incredible riches. But beneath the beauty and power lay secrets that are shocking even today. The pharaohs, who were believed to be chosen by the gods, followed customs that seem unimaginable now. From drinking mummy dust to keeping wild animals as pets, their actions were often extreme. What made them do such things? Were these customs signs of wisdom or just superstition? As we uncover their strangest traditions, we step into a world where reality and myth blend together. The secrets of Egypt's rulers are waiting to be revealed. In ancient Egypt, pharaohs were more than just kings. They were seen as living gods. People believed they were chosen by the gods to rule and maintain order in the world. The pharaohs controlled everything, from the flow of the Nile to the fate of their people. Their word was law, and no one dared to question their power. They were responsible for leading armies, building temples, and ensuring that the gods were pleased. Because of their divine status, pharaohs were treated with the highest respect. Their palaces were filled with gold, servants, and treasures. Even in death, they were honored with grand tombs and riches to take to the afterlife. But being seen as a god also came with fear and pressure. Pharaohs had to prove their power, and sometimes they followed strange and extreme customs to show they were truly special. The world of the pharaohs was filled with magic, superstition, and strange beliefs. They thought that every event, from the rise of the sun to the flooding of the Nile, was connected to the gods. To keep the balance of the universe, they followed rituals and performed ceremonies that might seem bizarre today. Some pharaohs believed they could gain strength by drinking potions made from crushed mummy powder. Others thought that flies were a curse and ordered human sacrifices to stop them. Many married their own siblings to keep their bloodline pure. These customs were not just personal choices, they were part of a larger belief system that controlled every part of life. Pharaohs had to follow these traditions, or they risked angering the gods. The fear of losing power or facing misfortune led them to take actions that may seem strange or even shocking today. Pharaohs were surrounded by luxury, but their lives were not easy. They constantly had to prove their strength, wisdom, and connection to the gods. To show their power, they sometimes created elaborate lies, such as staging fake battles and claiming victories they never won. Others wore heavy, poisonous makeup, believing it would protect them from evil spirits. Some pharaohs even ordered their servants and wives to be buried alive with them, thinking they would need them in the afterlife. These extreme actions were seen as necessary for maintaining power and securing their legacy. Even though their customs may seem strange now, in ancient Egypt, they were signs of greatness and divine favor. The pharaohs ruled for thousands of years, and their unusual traditions shaped history. As we explore their strangest behaviors, we will uncover a world where power and superstition ruled above all. The truth behind their actions is both fascinating and unsettling. Pharaohs feared death more than anything. They believed that life continued after death, but only if they prepared for it properly. To ensure their journey to the afterlife, they built massive tombs and collected treasures for their next life. Some pharaohs, however, wanted more than just a well-prepared tomb. They wanted to live forever. They searched for magical solutions to extend their lives. One of the strangest ideas was the belief that consuming ground-up mummies could give them power and health. This belief led to a bizarre practice where mummy remains were turned into a powder and used as medicine. The idea of using mummies as medicine was based on the belief that the preserved bodies contained special powers. Pharaohs and nobles would have the dried flesh of ancient mummies ground into a fine powder and mixed into drinks. They thought that by consuming these remains, they could absorb the strength and wisdom of the dead. Some even believed that mummy powder could heal diseases and prevent aging. This practice was not just limited to Egypt centuries later. European doctors also used mummy powder as medicine. The strange idea of eating the dead for health and power lasted for a very long time. Even after the age of the pharaohs ended, the practice of using mummies for medicine continued. In the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, European healers prescribed mummy powder as a cure for many illnesses. People believed that it could heal broken bones, stop bleeding, and even give them more energy. Because of this demand, tomb robbers started stealing mummies and selling them to traders. What started as an ancient Egyptian belief turned into a worldwide trade. Today, scientists know that mummy powder had no real healing power, but for centuries, people including pharaohs believed in its magical properties. Pharaohs were not just rulers, they were considered living gods. Because of this, they believed their bloodline had to remain pure. To keep their divine status, many pharaohs married their own brothers or sisters. They thought that marrying outside the royal family would weaken their power and break their connection to the gods. This practice was inspired by Egyptian mythology, where gods like Osiris and Isis were also married siblings. The idea of keeping power within the family was so important that even when pharaohs had many wives, their main queen was often their sister or another close relative. Many of Egypt's most famous rulers were the result of sibling marriages. Tutankhamun's parents were brother and sister, and Cleopatra married her own brothers to keep control of the throne. This tradition helped keep the royal family strong, but it also created problems. Sibling marriages often led to health issues due to genetic disorders. Tutankhamun, for example, had many medical problems, including a clubfoot and weak bones. While the practice was meant to keep the bloodline pure, it often caused more harm than good. Despite this, pharaohs continued marrying within their family for generations, believing it was their divine duty. Although marrying siblings helped keep power in the family, it had serious consequences. Over time, repeated inbreeding caused many pharaohs and their children to suffer from birth defects and genetic diseases. Scientists have studied mummies and found evidence of deformities, weak immune systems, and other health problems. Tutankhamun's tomb revealed that he relied on a cane to walk, likely due to his parents being closely related. Despite these dangers, pharaohs continued the tradition because they believed it was necessary to protect their rule. What was seen as a way to keep power actually weakened their royal bloodline over time. In ancient Egypt, pharaohs had control over every part of life, including how people reacted to small annoyances. One pharaoh in particular hated flies so much that he believed they were a curse sent by the gods. He thought that flies carried bad luck and that their presence meant that the gods were angry. Instead of simply swatting them away, he ordered extreme measures to get rid of them. He demanded priests and magicians to perform rituals. But when that did not work, he decided that the only way to stop the flies was to offer human sacrifices. To please the gods and stop the flies, the pharaoh ordered that people be sacrificed. He believed that by offering human lives, the gods would be satisfied and remove the insects. Priests selected victims, often prisoners or servants, and carried out the sacrifices in temple ceremonies. The pharaoh hoped that by shedding blood, the gods would take the curse away. This extreme act may seem shocking today, but in ancient Egypt, sacrifice was a common practice to gain the gods' favor. While not all pharaohs took such drastic actions, some truly believed that human sacrifices could solve even small problems. The pharaohs did not just rely on sacrifices to stop insects. They also built special temples and statues dedicated to keeping pests away. Some temples were covered with magical symbols meant to ward off flies and other unwanted creatures. People also wore charms and amulets to protect themselves from insect curses. While these efforts may not have been effective, they show how deeply Egyptians believed in magic and the power of their gods. Even though pharaohs ruled with absolute power, they still feared things they could not control. This led them to take extreme actions, even against something as small as flies. Pharaohs loved animals, but not just cats or dogs. They kept exotic animals like baboons, lions, and cheetahs as pets. These animals were a sign of power and wealth, showing that the pharaoh could control nature itself. Baboons in particular were popular in royal courts. They were often seen as sacred creatures connected to the gods. Some pharaohs even kept them inside the palace, where they roamed freely among servants and guards. These animals were not just pets, they were symbols of divine protection and were believed to bring good fortune to their owners. Baboons were more than just royal pets. They were trained to perform tasks and participate in religious ceremonies. Some were taught to retrieve objects, dance during rituals, or even serve as messengers. Egyptian art shows baboons sitting with scribes, which suggests they may have been trained to help in some way. They were also closely linked to Thoth, the god of wisdom. Because of this connection, baboons were often kept in temples and treated as sacred beings. These animals were given special care, and some even had their own servants to feed and clean them. Pharaohs believed that their pets would join them in the afterlife, just like their human servants. Many rulers had their favorite animals mummified and buried in their tombs. Archaeologists have found baboon and lion mummies in ancient tombs, showing how much pharaohs valued these creatures. Some pets were even buried in small coffins with jewelry and food for the afterlife. The bond between pharaohs and their animals was strong, and they believed their beloved pets would continue to serve and protect them in the next world. This practice reveals just how deeply the pharaohs connected animals with power and spirituality. Pharaohs believed that life continued after death, and they wanted to be just as powerful in the afterlife as they were on earth. They prepared for this journey by filling their tombs with treasures, food, and even boats. But some pharaohs went even further. They took their servants and wives with them. In the early dynasties, when a pharaoh died, some of his most loyal followers were killed and buried beside him. They believed that these servants would wake up in the next world and continue to serve the pharaoh. This practice was seen as an honor, but in reality, it was a terrifying fate. People chosen for sacrifice had no way to escape. As soon as the pharaoh took his last breath, they knew their own time had come. This cruel tradition showed just how much pharaohs believed in their divine power, even after death. Not everyone in the palace was sacrificed, only those closest to the pharaoh. This included royal servants, bodyguards, and sometimes even his wives. Archaeologists have discovered tombs where multiple bodies were buried alongside a pharaoh, showing that this was a real and practiced tradition. Some evidence suggests that the victims were drugged or killed painlessly before burial, while others may have been left alive in sealed chambers. The thought of being buried alive was terrifying, but many believed they had no choice. Serving the pharaoh in life was an honor, and for some, being chosen to serve him in death was seen as a sacred duty. Over time, this brutal practice faded, and pharaohs found another way to bring their servants into the afterlife. Instead of real people, they started using small statues called shaptas. These figurines were placed in tombs and were believed to come to life in the afterworld. They were made to look like workers and were often inscribed with spells to make them obey orders. This change was likely due to shifting religious beliefs and the growing resistance to human sacrifices. While the tradition of killing real people ended, the idea that pharaohs needed servants in the next world remained strong throughout Egypt's history. Pharaohs were expected to be strong warriors. They led armies, defended Egypt, and conquered new lands. But not every pharaoh was a great fighter. Some wanted to appear invincible, even when they had not won real battles. Instead of admitting defeat, they ordered artists to carve images of grand victories on temple walls. These carvings showed them standing tall, crushing their enemies, and bringing glory to Egypt. In reality, some of these battles never happened the way they were recorded. The pharaohs knew that history was written by the rulers, and they used this to their advantage. By creating false victories, they kept their people loyal and their enemies fearful. Even if they lost a war, their people would only see the version of history they wanted them to believe. For the pharaohs, appearing powerful was just as important as actually being powerful. Some pharaohs went to extreme lengths to stage victories. They would gather their armies, dress them in special armor, and have them perform fake battles in front of the people. These staged battles made it look like the pharaoh had fought bravely and won. Sometimes, captured prisoners were forced to act as defeated enemies in these performances. Artists and scribes were ordered to record these events in stone, ensuring that future generations would believe in the pharaoh's greatness. Even though these victories were not real, they helped pharaohs maintain control and keep their people loyal through fear and admiration. One of the most famous examples of fake victories comes from Ramses II and the Battle of Kadesh. Ramses claimed that he had won a glorious battle against the Hittites, and he filled Egypt with images of his triumph. However, historical records from the Hittites tell a different story. The battle was not a clear victory, and in reality, Ramses had to sign a peace treaty instead of winning outright. But to his people, he was a hero. His version of events was the only one they knew, proving that pharaohs could rewrite history and turn even defeats into legendary victories. Pharaohs and Egyptian nobles were known for their dramatic eye makeup. They painted their eyes with thick black and green pigments, believing it made them look powerful and godlike. But makeup was not just for beauty, it was also believed to have magical properties. Egyptians thought that dark eye paint protected them from evil spirits and the harsh sun. Some even believed it had healing powers. Because of these beliefs, pharaohs and elites applied makeup every day. However, they did not know that the ingredients in their makeup contained poisonous lead, which slowly affected their health over time. The black eyeliner used by pharaohs, called kohl, was made from a mineral that contained lead. Scientists have found that long-term exposure to lead can cause serious health problems, including weakness, confusion, and even death. Pharaohs and nobles wore heavy makeup for years, unknowingly poisoning themselves. Some of them may have suffered from chronic illnesses because of this beauty practice. However, they continued using the makeup, believing it gave them protection and divine energy. Despite the hidden dangers, pharaohs would rather risk their health than go without their powerful and magical appearance. Even though their makeup was dangerous, Egyptians continued to wear it for centuries. They believed that the gods had blessed them with these beauty secrets, and stopping the practice could bring bad luck. Some even mixed special ingredients into their makeup to make it stronger against evil forces. Pharaohs saw their appearance as a symbol of their divine connection, and they would never be seen without their dark, bold eyes. Today, scientists can prove that the lead in their makeup was harmful, but in ancient times, it was considered a gift from the gods. For pharaohs, beauty and power were worth the risk. The strange customs of the pharaohs were not just personal choices. They were deeply tied to their beliefs, traditions, and the need to maintain power. Everything they did, no matter how bizarre, was meant to prove their connection to the gods and strengthen their rule. Whether it was drinking mummy powder for eternal life, marrying their siblings to keep the royal bloodline pure, or staging fake battles to appear unbeatable, each action had a purpose. Pharaohs ruled with absolute authority, and their people followed their commands without question. These rulers were not just kings. They were treated as divine beings whose every decision shaped the destiny of Egypt. Even when their customs seem extreme or even cruel today, they made perfect sense in the world they lived in. The more we uncover about their lives, the more we realize how much their power was built on both faith and fear. Many of the pharaoh's strangest customs lasted for centuries, passed down from one ruler to the next. Some, like wearing heavy eye makeup, continued throughout Egyptian history, while others, like burying servants alive, eventually disappeared. Over time, new beliefs and political changes led to the decline of certain traditions. The practice of sibling marriage weakened as outside influences entered Egypt. Human sacrifices were replaced with statues and symbolic offerings. Even the worship of pharaohs as living gods faded as Egypt came under foreign rule. However, the impact of these traditions did not completely vanish. Many customs, such as elaborate burial rituals and the idea of an afterlife, influenced later cultures, including the Greeks and Romans. The pharaohs' way of life may have ended, but their legacy remains. Their grand monuments, mysterious tombs, and incredible stories still fascinate people today, proving that their influence has never truly disappeared. The world of the pharaohs was one of power, superstition, and mystery. Their customs, though strange by modern standards, helped them control their people and maintain their rule for thousands of years. Whether through fear, religion, or deception, pharaohs ensured that their names would never be forgotten. The pyramids still stand as proof of their ambition, and their mummies continue to reveal secrets about their lives. Even today, scientists and historians study their remains, uncovering new details about their health, rituals, and daily lives. The myths and mysteries surrounding the pharaohs have inspired countless books, movies, and legends. They lived in a time when gods and rulers were one and the same, and their actions shaped one of the greatest civilizations in history. While we may never fully understand all their reasons, one thing is, certain pharaohs lived in a world where power and superstition ruled above all. Their story is not just history. It is a legend that continues to captivate the world.